Chelsea's 1-0 loss to Arsenal in the Premier League felt like a mundanely familiar watching experience for anyone who's been watching Chelsea in recent times. The play, although lacking urgency, was good for the most part until sustained pressure came either at the offensive or defensive end. However, there will be more focus on the offensive end of things in this particular video, mainly because, well, that was one of the areas where Chelsea have been falling short for quite a while now. There have been times when the club have found a sustained degree of defensive solidity, but a fluidity in attack, despite actually a lot of investment in that particular zone, has still something that has been elusive for the club. Why exactly has that been the case, and what exactly can be done to actually fix this? That is what we're going to be looking at in this particular video. Now, to start, it is worth noting that this particular year Chelsea have looked pretty much off in front of goal, and that's despite again significant investment in the forward line. But that isn't exactly a new issue. It's been an issue arguably since 2019 when the club sold Eden Hazard to. Since then they have struggled a lot when it comes to consistent output in the forward line. That is something that can be seen as true, especially going back just to last season. Now, if you look at the numbers in terms of goals scored by the top four teams, and remember Chelsea finished third last year, you'd look at it and you'd realize there's a significant drop-off between the sides in first and second and the side in third, who are of course in this case Chelsea. Manchester City scored 99 goals en route to the Premier League title, and Liverpool, who finished a close second, scored 94 goals. However, with Chelsea, once you see third place, Chelsea scored only 76 goals total during the Premier League. Now, that is, as I said, it's a massive drop-off, and it's pretty evident that, even with Tottenham there in fourth, they only had 69 goals. But there is one key caveat. Tottenham are a side under Antonio Conte who don't necessarily look to be playing in an attacking, expansive manner. Their style of play is very much dependent on nicking chances of the counter and winning close matches. Chelsea, however, have been trying to play attacking, expansive football, but despite the fact that they have been attempting to do that, it's not really evident in their goal output. And in fact, if you look at it so far this year, the drop-off has been massive. Why? Because if you look at the top four sides, Arsenal so far this season have scored 31 goals. Manchester City, who are in second place, have scored 33 goals. Third place, Newcastle United have scored 28 goals, whereas Tottenham Hotspur in fourth place have scored 27 goals. And mind you, Tottenham also are currently experiencing some degree of criticism for their lack of attacking play. Yet, Chelsea are way beyond the 8 ball. Not only do they find themselves well outside the top 4, they're currently in 7th or 8th position, they have only scored 17 goals in the same time period. That is almost half the number of goals that Manchester City have scored. It's not exactly the mark of a side that are on the right direction to becoming a team that could potentially be consistently challenging for trophies. It is also worth noting that despite them having scored 17 goals, they've also conceded 16 goals, which means that not only are they not very good going forward, they're also pretty porous at the back. And yes, there are some mitigating circumstances like maybe injuries and of course, new personnel taking time to gel. But beyond that, the current optics don't really look good for the Blues. Now, why exactly has that been the case, and what is it that they can actually do to move forward and actually, improve in this regard? The reason why it's actually been so muddled in recent times is due to their transfer strategy since 2019. Now, you remember that 2019 was the year Eden Hazard left the club for Real Madrid. The club did sign Christian Pulisic as his replacement, but there were holes in the squad that had to be filled under then manager Frank Lampard. They weren't able to do that too much, however, because they were in the midst of a transfer ban. So rather than actually invest in players, they had to promote youth players. You remember that was the year Fikayo Tomori, Tammy Abraham and Mason Mount all made their breakthroughs in the first team alongside the likes of Reece James. So there's plenty of focus on young players, and obviously when it comes to focusing on young players, the output can be a little hit and miss. But even after that, they have had the chance to invest, and despite the fact that they've invested a lot of money, they've got very little return on it. So one of the things, however, that doesn't really help their case is the fact that they've actually changed coaches many times since that season. Now, if you look back in 2019, Frank Lampard came into the club having replaced Maurizio Sarri, who had only spent one season at Chelsea. Lampard himself came in, spent a season, and then he was sacked in the middle of the second season, and then in came Thomas Tuchel Tuchel had a full, he had half a season where he won the Champions League, and then of course the following season he also got to invest plenty of money, but to little to no success. He couldn't quite figure out ways to make the team function, and then to make perhaps things worse, all of those managers actually signed players who came in whether on short-term basis or long-term basis, and that has resulted in Chelsea's current attacking lineup, if you have to look at all the options they have, looking very muddied and very bloated. Because if you look at the current squad, if you look at who are the favourites, you generally have the likes of Havertz, Mount, Aubameyang and Sterling being the four regular players playing there. Sometimes Gallagher will slot in either in midfield or he'll sometimes slot in the forward line. But other than that, they also have options around, like of course Hakim Ziyech, who's barely got a look in this season. Pulisic, who was supposed to be the Hazard replacement, has spent more time injured and on the bench than he has on the first team. And there's also the fact that beyond just these players, there have been others who have come and gone. Remember, Gonzalo Higuain was signed by the club under Maurizio Sarri. He failed. Then you had Romelu Lukaku come into the club for a record fee. 1 season later, he's off to Inter Milan. So there's been a lot of players signed, but the main problem is that there is no proper plan in the attacking zones, and perhaps more importantly that even when there is a plan, they haven't quite signed players who would necessarily be able to fulfill those roles. Again, look at someone like Lukaku or Timo Werner. Neither of them actually fit the stereotypical style that was needed by the club at that point, yet both were signed anyway. The club have sometimes struggled even to accommodate Kai Havertz. And the main reason is even now you're seeing that Raheem Sterling has been signed, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang has been signed. But what exactly is the key plan going forward for these players? There isn't actually a proper plan in the attacking zones. There aren't patterns of play. There aren't movements that have been coached yet. And granted, this is something that takes time, which actually brings us back to this point. They need a manager to be given time to actually work on that. Tuchel looked like he was getting somewhere, but then this season came and he got sacked. And now Graham Potter has, the job when it comes to doing that. So what exactly is it that Chelsea can do to actually remove these major problems? Well, there's two major things. For one, they need to actually look to sign a couple more players at least when they get the chance that will fit a vision and actually, be able to play cohesively. But perhaps more importantly than that, they need to stick with Graham Potter for the long term and actually give him the time to actually get his players playing the way he wants them to. Because again, if you remember watching him as Brighton manager, Brighton were kings of actually underperforming the XG or the expected goals metric, which meant that they created a lot of chances, but they never really converted them. The advantage with Chelsea is that they are actually world-class, forwards at the club. So if they can get to the point where they will be able to create a lot of chances, they should be able to at least finish off some of them. Right now, the major issue is that the club are not actually even creating too many chances, and thus they aren't able to take as many as they probably should be either. And that is it for this particular video. Let us know in the comments below if you think that Chelsea's problems run much deeper than the issues that I've touched upon in this particular video. And of course, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course, tap that bell icon if you haven't. Then you can go ahead and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and don't forget to download the AajTak app. Thank you all for joining us. As always, I've been Shane Rice and hope to see you all again soon. But for now, goodbye.